Hibernate query language. So Hibernate provides several ways that you can use to perform query operation. So here we are going to cover them all. First one is criteria query, query by example, which is part of the criteria query, and query language. Well, actually should be Hibernate query query language. So it is sometimes it's called HQL. And SQL, you can also actually use native SQL in Hibernate. So if you happen to have well-optimized SQL query you want to actually take advantage of in your Hibernate application, you can do that. So let's start with the Hibernate criteria query. So the subtopics of Hibernate criteria query. So we are going to look into what criteria query is and how to use it, and we are going to see how we can do some advanced features of query, such as a pagination, restrictions, ordering, and aggregate functions such as a sum, minimum, maximum, and things like that. We'll talk about the fetch mode, join fetch, and things like that, and then we're going to talk about query by example. So what is criteria query? So as I mentioned before, there are multiple ways that you can use query. So criteria query, and criteria query is the easiest way from a Java developer standpoint to perform query operation, because you are building your query using Java code. Okay, and we are going to look into HQL and native SQL later on, but these two are not really Java code. So criteria query is the easiest to use for performing query if you are a Java developer, because you don't have to deviate. You don't have to deviate from your Java code, meaning you don't have to construct the non-Java like query a string. Okay, so criteria query API. So you are going to use a set of Java objects for constructing queries, and we are going to see how we do that in the following slide. Instead of SQL-like query language string. Okay, so let you build nested and structured query expressions in Java programming language. One nice feature of using the criteria query is because you're using Java, it can actually do compile time type checking. So if there is in fact a problem of type checking at compile time, it will, if there is a problem, it will actually detect it at the compile time. It will not blow up during runtime. Okay, polymorphic behavior is another advantage. So you can say get instance X and subclass X. So basically, when you say select X, then it will get all the instances of X and its subclasses. The instances of X and its subclasses. Okay, so it will actually have that kind of polymorphic behavior. Criteria API, criteria query API also includes what is called the query by example. Query by example is basically you create a Java object and then you're setting a values, and that object, it could be used as a criteria, search criteria, so that's actually one of the schemes you can use. Okay, so we're going to actually look into that later on. And from Hibernate 3, it supports aggregation functions such as a count. Okay. So let's see how we can use criteria query API. So first, you are going to create criteria object, and you can create criteria object from your session object. So from the session object, you can say create criteria, and you provide the class that you want to perform the query operation. Okay. So create criteria object via create criteria factory method of the session object, and then you want to pass persistent object class or its entity name to the create criteria method, and then you are going to call list method to perform actual query operations. So criteria.list, and then it will perform SQL operation underneath, and then it will return result in the form of list. Okay, pretty straightforward. So there is no SQL or HQL string, non-Java like string here. Okay. All right. Pagination. So you are going to create the criteria object, and then you can call set first result method and set max result method. So here, basically I'm starting. I like to get from the third row. Okay, so this value start from 0. So 2 means from the third row. And max result, I want to receive maximum number of rows I like to retrieve is 50. Okay. All right. So that's pagination. You can also narrow the result set using what is called the restrictions. So restrictions class is used to selectively retrieve objects. So for example, what you can do is that I like to retrieve all the person entries whose age field is greater than 20. Okay, so basically person objects whose age field's value is greater than 20. So the way you are going to do restrictions is you are going to call add method to the criteria query object. Okay, and add method of criteria object takes the what is called the criterion object that represent the individual restriction. We're going to actually see example in the following slide, so don't worry about this. But basically, yeah. So I'm going to actually come back this one later on after we see the example. And you can have more than one restriction for criteria query. So these are the things that you can do with restrictions, the object. So restrictions that equal. So I like to get the entries whose name is Shin, whose name is not no name. So this is not E, or like this is a parent. The capital and small capital, the capital and not the small letter is null. Name is null, and greater than. Price has to be price is greater than 30.0, and age is greater than 2, and this is between, so age is between 2 and 10 inclusive, and the or. So this is actually returning what is called the criterion object. So you can actually have two restrictions and or operation, and disjunction is disjunctions, meaning the disjunction. Yeah, so that's actually the terminology I have to use. Okay, so this is an example. Okay, so here you first create the criteria object, and then you are going to call restrictions that like, and here I like to actually have a restrictions. Restrictions like is going to return criterion object. So basically the name is a pattern of Shin and whatever after that. Okay, and then you are going to add this restriction, the object, which is a criterion object, using add method. Okay, and then when you perform list, it will actually use this restriction. So basically these restrictions will be used to create the where clause underneath. Okay, so if I actually go back to this basically you're going to use the add method of the criteria object and takes the criterion object, which is the representing restriction. Okay, so if you go back to the code here, this whenever you're using restrictions, the like method here, it returns criterion object, and you can actually add the criterion object to criteria, and you can actually add multiple criterion object to your criteria. Okay, and it will be used again to create a where clause underneath. Logical grouping of restrictions. So as I said before, you can actually have or operation. So here we are basically the session created. We create the criteria object, and then we are calling add method, and then we are basically adding this restriction, and then we are adding another restrictions, and this is or operation. So or method of restrictions will take a criterion object. So this is this equal, and here either of this one is a criterion object. So or either or of this one of this is or operation. Okay, and you can certainly have and operation here as well. Okay, in terms of ordering, you can use the add order, and then you specify order object. So this is ascending order, and this is a descending order, and then you can call add order method. Okay. projections and aggregation. So here you can actually use any of these things. Row count, how many rows in the table, average, so average value of these properties, and count, number of times a property has a value, and count distinct, number of unique values of that property, and max, minimum, sum. Projections. So basically, you're going to use these projections to use these aggregate functions. So basically, you say projections.row count. Okay. So in this case, we create a criteria object, and then you're going to set projection, and then you say projections and row count. And when you perform list, in this case, it will return just one object. Okay. So this list will have a single object. Okay. Multiple projections. So in this case, we want to get the list of we want to have average value of the price, sum value of the price. Okay, and so when we actually invoke the list method here, it will return two items in this list. Okay. Okay, so fetch mode. We are going to actually learn fetch mode in a bit more detail tomorrow when we are learning what is called the join fetch and n+1, the famous select problem. Okay, the infamous n+1 select problem. Okay, so fetch mode at default is the default. Okay, and join and select. Okay, so join is that Hibernate retrieve the associated instance or collection in the same select using outer join. And select this is a default. So second select is used to retrieve the associated entity or collection. Okay, so unless you explicitly disable lazy fetching by specifying lazy false, the second select will be executed when you actually access the association. So we're going to actually learn these things in a bit more detail using various sets of examples. So if you don't understand underlying behavior of these things, don't worry about it. I just want to let you know that these fetch modes are available. Okay, so the way that you are going to set the fetch mode is basically calling set fetch mode. Okay, so fetch mode join and fetch mode select and things like that. All right, so exercise 1. So here excuse me. Okay, so we are going to open. So exercise 1 is basically restrictions. So it will, so let's just restrictions. Query and restrictions. So let's run this code. And this is what you should see as a result. Okay, so I'm going to explain the result using the code. Okay, so it's actually captured in each of this. Okay, so this is a case that build a simple criteria with no restrictions. So basically, criteria, and then we call this. So by the way, we have so let's take a look at the table first. So the table that we are dealing with is we have a product table, and then we have a supplier table. So there is a one-to-many relationship between supplier and product. Okay, so one supplier can have multiple products. Okay, so product should have a foreign key field. So this supplier ID is a foreign key field reflecting what supplier that product belongs to. So this product 1 and 2, it is created by supplier 1, and the third product is created by supplier number 2. Okay, so that is the sample database tables that we are going to work with. Okay, so let's take a look at the first. So basically, when we created criteria and product, then it will just display the products, all products. So that is what we are going to see actually I'm going to use yeah, so it will just display the products. Okay, so when we call the display product list, it's display product list. Oh, okay, looks like I have it over here. Okay, so basically displaying the products. Okay, and the second one is we are going to do paging. So we are going to start from the second row, and then the size of the product we want to display is 2. So it will just display these 2. Okay, so that is this guy using paging. Okay. The third one is 2 conditions. So we are going to add 2 restrictions. One is the price has to be greater than $25, and the name has to start with a P. Okay, so we have only one product that meets that criteria. Okay, so that is only of this guy. And then this is a builder criteria with restriction like pattern. So we're basically the product which name start with a product 1. So there should be only one, this one. Okay. And then this one is restriction or price is greater than 25. A name has to be the XXX pattern. Okay, I'm not sure whether, yeah, it looks like yeah, so I mean it basically has to be only one, right? Okay, and this is the order, and this is the association. This is the retrieve all suppliers, which has, yeah, so this is a case that we are also using association. So retrieve all suppliers which has products, any of whose prices greater than 25. Okay, so here we are creating a criteria based on supply class, and then we are adding the order. Okay, so we like to have the supplier to be ordered based on name, and then we are going to create another criteria, okay, based on product. Okay, and this is the entity name, and then we are going to add another restriction based on price. Okay, and then basically we are performing the query operation. Okay, so this is a product criteria, and actually where are they related here? So this is the supplier class. Yeah, so this is specify the association path as an argument. Oh, okay, so this is the supply criteria, and then we are actually adding the product as an argument. So this will actually create inner join. Okay, so when you run the code, I mean, you should actually see, try to actually change the Hibernate config here and change this guy to true. This is right now set to false, right? So try to change to true and see whether it's actually performing join operation. Okay, and okay, so that is, oh, okay, so that is the 1.2, and this one is SQL. I'm not sure actually I explained this one or not. Oh, okay, yeah, so it looks like this is actually part of the exercise, whole exercise. Okay, okay, so this is the so here we created product class, and then we are basically adding, so alias placeholder will be replaced by the row aliases of the query entities. So in this case we are going, so basically restrictions, SQL restrictions, and oh, it looks like I didn't actually emphasize this one. Let me just I think I actually changed this guy to Java EADB. I actually emphasized the with the different color. So let me just run this guy. Oh, not JPA, it's Hibernate. What am I talking about? Hibernate query. Okay. Oh, okay. So this is the case. There is a quite range of built-in criteria and types restrictions subclasses. One that is especially useful lets you specify SQL directly. So alias placeholder will be replaced by the row alias of the queried. Oh, okay, queried entities. So this will be So this will be replaced by the product, the row, and then that's basically is actually using this pattern to perform the restriction. Okay, so this is basically displaying the product. Okay, now, and this one is build criteria with restrictions, SQL restrictions. So this one is, how is that different? Oh, okay, so it's just the different patterns. Okay, that is one that. Okay, and the next one is a projection. So here basically we are running projections. Okay, so we have projections list object, and then the projections property name and description. Okay, and then we get the result. So the result is going to be product one and the description. So in this case, we are basically we are trying to display only the name and description. Okay, and this one we are going to display max value, minimum value, and average and count distinct. Okay, so when we do that, the value is supposed to be this guy. So this is the this is max, and this is the minimum. This is the average, and this one I'm not sure what was the last. That was okay, count distinct. Okay, so there are 3 distinct values on descriptions, and this is the number of rows. Okay, and this is a fetch mode. So don't worry about this fetch mode. We are going to learn this fetch mode in a bit more detail. So in this case, just understand the syntax of it. Okay, so fetch mode, you can set the fetch mode join. Okay, so whenever you perform join operation, you can see is actually performing join operation in SQL. Okay, so that's basically fetch mode select. It's not using join, so that's the reason what you're seeing is here. Okay, same thing with default. Okay, which is the select. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you guys about the 15 minutes to try this. Okay. Next topic is query by example. So this is another style of Java-based query. So basically, you are going to create an object instance, and then you're going to populate the properties of that instance, and then Hibernate will actually create a criteria underneath using that instance as an example. So you're going to use example class, org Hibernate.criterion.example class. It actually implements the criterion interface as well. So this is like a restriction. Okay. So example is like this. So you are going to use the create method of example class, and then you provide the domain class object, and then you have an example. So you can think of example is like another restriction. So you just add that restriction. Okay. So underneath is going to actually create the criteria for you. Okay. So in this case, basically by setting the name field of person object, basically what I'm saying is that give me all the persons whose name is Shin. Okay. All right. So let's do exercise 2. So exercise 2 is relatively straightforward. So here we are going to perform. So here build a criteria with query by example here. So I have a supplier, and I'm setting the name field of Samsung, the supplier Samsung, and then I'm adding this example criterion object to the criteria. So basically give me all the supplier whose name is Samsung. That's basically what it's doing. So in this case, if you are like looking at the table, so the table is exactly the same table that we worked in previous exercise. So here we should actually have a single entry here. So basically that's the result. Okay. The second case is that get all products whose supplier is Samsung. So in this case, basically we should have these two products whose actual supply ID is 1, which is Samsung. So we should have two entries. Okay. So that is the second case. So here we are going to create a criteria, product criteria. Okay, and then we are setting the product name property. Okay, and then we are creating example object. Okay, and for example, we can also actually exclude property like this. You know, we do not want to have a price to be we do not want to use a price property of this example to be used as a restriction. Okay, enable like is basically we like to actually have a pattern matching to be performed. Okay, and then what we can do is we have a product criteria, and then we have another criteria from supplier. So this is basically the same example that we have seen previously. We are creating like a join the join criteria. So we have a supplier criteria which is actually created from the product criteria. Okay, and then supplier example, again we are using the set name is Samsung. Okay, and then we are adding this example to supplier criteria, and then we perform we like to get all the products whose name whose supplier is Samsung. That's basically the result we get. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes to try this exercise, the presentation. Okay. The next one is Hibernate query language, HQL. Okay, so here we're going to learn what HQL is, and we are going to use from clause and association and join, select clause and where clause, and named query and polymorphic query. So what is HQL? So you can think of HQL very similar to SQL, but you are using objects here. So it's actually closer to Java. So criteria is basically Java APIs. HQL, you can think of it as between the criteria API and SQL. Okay, so because you are using Java object, it does understand inheritance and polymorphism and association. But you are going to use pretty similar structure from SQL, like a from and as. Okay, and these are association and joins. You can use inner join, outer join, full join, and select elements and where clause. And you can also do aggregate functions. So these are pretty much like SQL, but the object itself, we are going to use an object. Okay. Alright, so SQL is fully object-oriented, understanding notions like inheritance and polymorphism and association. And the queries are case insensitive except for names of Java classes and properties. So Java classes are obviously case sensitive. Okay, so let's see examples. So first, from clause. So here, when you say from eg.cat, that means return all instances of the class eg.cat. So eg is a package, and cat is a class. Okay. Usually you don't have to qualify the class name. So since auto import is the default, so instead of from.eg, so eg is a package, and .cat, you can say from cat. Okay. So again, this is cat is a Java class. Okay. Because you're using Java class, when you're using from cat, it will actually get all the instances of not only cat but subclasses of cat. Okay. Most of the time you will want to assign an alias, since you will want to refer to the cat in other parts of the query. So you can actually assign an alias if you want to. So here, from cat as cat, or you can omit the as, so you can say from cat. Okay. You can use from clause for multiple classes. So you can say from formula parameter, and you can also specify an aliases. Okay. The local variable naming recommendations. This is a convention. Name query aliases using initial lowercase. So use aliases with a lowercase, and with the Java class, you want to use the capital first letter. Okay. Okay, associations and joins. So here you can actually use inner join or outer join, all the possible join cases. So here from cat as cat, and then inner join with a cat mate as mate, and left out join cat kittens as kitten. From cat as cat, and this is left join. Okay. For those of you who are not really familiar with various types of join, I recommend you to take a look at MySQL course. MySQL course has a join the topic, and I explain the differences between inner join, outer join, and the left outer join, and all those different types of joins in that presentation using examples. So I recommend you to take a look at that. Okay, so join types. Yeah, this is basically what I just said. Inner join, left outer join, right outer join, and full join. Okay. All right, so where clause. So where you can use the where clause. So here, get all cat instances whose name is Fritz. And if there is an alias, use the qualified property name. So you can use the qualified property name here. Cat.name is Fritz. Okay. All right, select. So select clause picks which objects and properties to return in the query result set. So you can see this HQL is somewhat similar to SQL, except that the actual the entities we are using is a Java class. Okay, so select mate from cat as cat and inner join, and this is a compact form. Returning properties. So I like to just get the name from the cat, and I like to get the so you can actually because this is a Java object, you can say select name dot first name. So basically first name field of the name class, which is from the customer class. Returning multiple objects as type object array. So here you can say mother, offspring, mate, name. So these are all in the form of array. Okay. You can also actually have in the returned the multiple objects or in the form of a list. So it will return list object. And type safe Java object. So here I'm actually getting a family object. Okay. This is a where clause. Okay. Return all instances of foo for which there exists an instance of bar with a date property equal to the start date property of the foo. So this is a where clause. Okay. And compound path expressions make the where clause extremely powerful. So cat.mate.name. Okay, so this is something that you cannot do with the SQL, right? Named query. Basically, you make a named query, and then you can actually use it in different places. So this is like the convenience. So here you create a named query called HQL pricing, which is actually this the HQL. Select product price from product where product price is 25 and 0. And then later on you can actually use the named query. Basically you create a named query object specifying the named query that is defined here in the mapping file, and then you can perform the query operation. Polymorphic query is again, because anything that is a cat instance and subclass of cat will be returned. Okay, so that's basically what is talking about. Hibernate queries may name any Java class or interface in the from clause. So here, any Java class or interface, and then the query will return instances of all persistent classes that extend the class or implement the interface. So in this case, if you say from java.lang.object, then it will return everything, right? Okay, because everything is actually a subclass of object. All right, so that's exercise 3. So let's take a look at the exercise 3. So basically, you run the application, and this is the result. And so this is basically displaying everything from product. Okay, so all products, and this is the case with a page Okay, so pagination. Oh, wait a minute. This is the okay. Yeah, we actually add a pagination, and here we actually created HQL string. So here for product whose price is greater than 2, and the name like pattern or P and something. Okay. And this is the inner join. So basically the suppliers whose inner join fetches product as P. So basically we are performing inner join operation with the between supplier and products. Okay. So we like to get the all supplier who has a product. Okay. And this is the inner join, and whose product price is greater than 20. And this is the left outer join. Okay. And this is the left outer join, and yeah. So we're actually using left outer join and right outer join, and this one is left outer join, and this is the right outer join. Yeah, which we just decided. And this is the select. You're basically performing different types of select. So select with a where clause. Okay, and this one is we actually have piece of, yeah, so this is the case that we are just displaying the name of the supplier from the product supplier name. Okay, so when you actually display it, basically this is what you get. And this is the case for using named query. Okay, so we defined we are just using name query called the HQL pricing. Okay, so if you take a look at the mapping file, we have defined HQL pricing with this select statement. Okay. All right, so that is the HQL. So let's move on to the last SQL query. So SQL query is used when you have existing SQL query that is optimized, okay, and you want to take advantage of it. Okay, so basically native SQL could be used. All right, so that is exercise 4. So let's take a look at the exercise 4. So here basically we are going to create, so this is the native SQL string, right? Okay, and then you are going to use a create SQL query. You're going to call create SQL query, and then you perform. Okay, and you also have to specify the root entity for that. Okay, so this is another SQL query. Okay. All right, so that is the end of the presentation. So let me just